Hey, middle-aged gamers, welcome back. We are here and pretty timely today, I will have to say. On today's show, on my side, we're going to be talking about the roguelike dungeon building game Minos. We're also going to be talking about Dispatch, which you might have seen a lot online from different voices of gaming, like Laura Bailey, Alana Ray, that sort of stuff. On Adam's side of the show, we're talking about Junji Ito Maniac and Infinity Jail. Parasite Mutant, and if we have time, a game that Adam and I are both interested in, People of Note, which looks really cool. As always, we have two questions for today, so think about them now and maybe leave a comment down on the live show if you're watching that, or later on, or any one of the videos this week. The first question Adam's going to be talking about is, what are the coolest, most stylish games ever made? And number two is, what's a game you didn't expect to love, but ended up completely obsessed with? But Adam, tell us about Junji Ito Maniac and Infinity Jail, which I could not say again.
Junji Ito Maniac and Infinite Jail, yeah. So this is a game that's currently, there's a demo out. We don't know when the actual game's going to come out, but it should come out around 2026 sometime. I'm not sure. It's developed by Softstar Interactive, which is a Taiwanese developer. So, you know, a little bit of home field love there. But they are the same developers that created The Bridge Curse 1 and 2 and Incantation, the game. So, you know, they have a little bit of experience with horror, and those are rated pretty good. They have pretty good ratings. So, you know, hopefully this will be good as well. So this seems to be based more on the anime, which is in turn based on Junji Ito's manga. So this is kind of like a 1 degree off kind of thing. But you can see a lot, but obviously the show basically is a video interpretation of his comics, so they follow the same kind of plots and that sort of thing. Feature the same kind of monsters. So if you're a fan of the comics, you'll definitely recognize a lot of stuff in it. So far, you know, like there is a demo. It looks like the gameplay is very similar to the Seventh Guest, with maybe a little bit of Sweet Home or maybe some PT in it. So if you've played the Seventh Guest, you know that's one of those kind of point and click kind of adventure games. Or if you've played Sweet Home, it's I believe Sweet Home is Thailand, if I remember correctly. But you know, it's you're running around in these kind of haunted buildings or whatever, and there might be a ghost that you have to hide in a closet from, that sort of thing. So this has elements of that. There's a part where the character's being chased and they have to hide into a closet, and the enemy kind of wanders into the room and looks around. Then there's another one where they showed traps and stuff. So it looks like you're not gonna be able to directly deal with threats here, but you are gonna be able to maybe set some traps. So you can kind of set them up, so you can kind of lead them into those, and then get yourself out of trouble that way. But anyway, the setup of this is that you're a college student and you wake up in a mansion with only a phone and a few shattered memories. So you're not quite sure why you're there, and you're not quite sure who you are. But you have some clues on your phone, and you're going to be exploring the mansion with a beautiful woman who is Tomi, who, if you are familiar with Junji Ito's work, you know who Tomi is. And it says an austere detective, which is not featured in the demo as far as I can tell. I haven't played it myself, but I've watched some gameplay videos. I'm not sure who the detective is, so I don't know. There's a couple characters that might be, or could be an entirely original character, not quite sure. But anyway, Tomi's in it quite a bit. And it's going to feature many of Junji Ito's classic horrors. We obviously have Tomi from Tomi. We have the cat and the weird legged creature that it seems to be dragging around from Cat Diary. We have the disembodied head from Long Hair in the Attic. We have the statues from Headless Sculptures. I didn't see them as I was skimming through, but supposedly we're going to have the balloon heads from Hanging Balloons. So a lot of Junji Ito classics that you're going to know. Things that I didn't see, but who knows? Maybe we'll find it. I did not see any cracks in the shape of people. No fish with mechanical legs. No spirals. No living planets. That one might be a little bit hard to add in. But no soul gemstones. No people made out of like erector sets, and no freakish supermodels, and no Soichi, which is kind of interesting that they would include Tomi but not Soichi. But who knows? He could be in there. It wouldn't surprise me if he shows up at some point. The night is still young. So anyway, looks interesting. It does look a little bit simple. It is kind of one of those point and click kind of things. It doesn't look like a very intensive game. But if you're a fan of Junji Ito, it's fun to kind of go through and see things and be like, oh, I know. Fun to go through and see things and be like, oh, I know what that is, or I know what that is, or So it's kind of like a little museum, a little game museum in a sense. So anyway, however, if you're looking for something that's probably a little bit closer to the kind of horror that you would be facing in the comics, you can always check out World of Horror. That definitely has a very strong Junji Ito vibe. It's very heavily influenced by him and some other things. But yeah, it looks a lot like his work. It's in black and white. It's I think they even call it a 1-bit game, so it's just pixels of black and white. But that one's really good. So yeah, you can check out World of Horror. But if you want to see something a little more 3D, if you want to see something that's a little more moving around in smooth action and not just like you're playing a comic book, keep an eye on Junji Ito Maniac and Infinite Jail. No release date as of yet, but the demo is out now, so you can check that out.
Do you want to tell us more about what Junji Ito is, and I mean, like, who, what? I'm still. I looked at the Steam page. I'm like, okay, yes, I can see what you meant about simplicity. Yes, this is like more of a point and click. But what makes this so interesting to somebody who's interested in horror or never heard of this or is not familiar? Yeah, what is the pull?
Yeah, so the appeal here would be Junji Ito himself, or rather his creations. So Junji Ito is a Japanese manga artist, writer. He does a lot of kind of cosmic horror kind of things. He's one of the few people that really captures, like, because cosmic horror is really hard to show visually, because the idea is of cosmic, it's beyond comprehension, right? So if you can see it, that means you can comprehend it. But he does a really good sense of, you can see something, but there's more to it than what you see, and what you see is already so mind-boggling that it's like, where does this even come from? So he does a lot of really great stuff, really good artist. Probably his most famous is Uzumaki, which is also, I've heard people call it spirals because that's what it means. But that was a longer one. He's got a few longer ones. He's got that one, Gyo. That's the one with the fish with mechanical legs. Was it Hellstar Romeo? That one's one of the longer ones. He has a lot of short stories too. And they are, a lot of times, you get something weird will happen and it's not necessarily explained how it happened or why it happened. It's just kind of like, that's the idea of cosmic horror, is that, these things don't really care about us and whatnot. So if you're a fan of his work, and he does a lot of body horror as well. So if you're not into body horror, you might want to give this one a pass along with his comics. But if you're into it, 100% check it out. But yeah, so he's just really famous for that, and this is kind of a collection of the things that he's done in the past. So if you're a fan of his and you want to see them again in a new format, then that's what the appeal is.
I mean, two follow-ups. How did you get exposed to this, and what is body horror?
Okay, I got exposed to this because my wife said, "Oh, Junji Ito's making a game," and then showed me a link. That's how I got exposed to this. How I got exposed to Junji Ito, I don't even remember. That's a very good question. I don't remember. I was reading comics, I had heard of Uzumaki before, and then I came across it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I can finally read this one. And that was actually the first one of his I read. And it was really good. I will say, on a personal note, I think that he has kind of a similar issue to what I've heard people describe Stephen King as having, where in his long forms, it seems like the endings kind of fall off. I think they're both kind of these procedural writers where they start with an idea and they just run with it, but they don't necessarily know where they're going. And so when they get to the end, it's kind of like, oh, so they just kind of have to end it. But yeah, what was the other question? Was how was I? Oh, what is body horror? Body horror is how to describe it? It's when it's horror built around losing control of your own body and form. So things like The Fly, where he starts mutating into this monstrous creature and his body is changing and his mind is changing. So The Fly is a good example. A lot of the who who did Videodrome? I can't remember his name now. Was it? It's I can't remember, but like those old movies that you would see in the 80s a lot, you know, where you have like Alien is another kind of form of body horror, you know, where you got this thing inside of you. That was not as extreme as some other examples. The Thing, you know, where the alien is like it turns into people and it, you know, it can change its arms into these weird tendrils and whatnot, you know, so that sort of thing. The most recent probably good example would be The Substance is another example. So that sort of thing, you know, where it's like kind of you see it and it's like, ugh, you know, and it's like kind of makes your skin crawl and you're like, ugh, you know, things are growing out of you or into you or you're growing.
Would Parasite be an example?
Parasite the Maxim, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, that is somewhat interesting.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. Moving on to my story today. So, what if you were the monster in the labyrinth, and every hero who enters is your prey? Tonight, we defend the maze in Minos. So this is not entirely a new idea, but if you think of Dungeon Keeper, and we've had games that have tried to emulate the success of Dungeon Keeper in the past, without that much, like, Dungeon Keeper was such a big thing, I feel like, going back to the 90s or late 90s. I mean, depends which Dungeon Keeper you're talking about. But the idea of that was like, okay, cool, like, you're the Dungeon Master, you're the bad guy, or quote-unquote bad guy. And Minos tries to bring some of that back. So it's like, unlike most myth retellings, Minos lets you play as the Minotaur. And again, if you're a geek, if you grew up in a certain time period where you had to study, let's say study, you had to read all about this stuff when you were growing up. You'd know about the Minotaur, you'd know about the labyrinth. And so in this game, right, you are building the labyrinth. So you have to set traps, you know, boulders, ballistas, etc. And you can dynamically reshape paths to manipulate your enemies. So as people enter the labyrinth, right, again, very much similar to the story, if you read it, right, like this was a moving labyrinth where like people would get lost forever, and only those like Theseus, I forgot how you say his name.
Theseus?
Theseus, yes. You know, was the one who actually sort of defeated the Minotaur in the end. So there's a lot of stuff, again, that you're familiar with, you know, setting traps, having trap synergies between like a spike trap and a poison trap, or like a wall of fire that stops enemies from going one way and forces them down another path. This game is not currently out yet. There is a demo available. If you want to go onto YouTube as well, there are players who have had like early access to like alpha builds where they've been playing for like an hour or two, so you can watch a lot of gameplay. And we don't know when it is coming out, but I hope like this concept is really cool. It looks really nice. It's quite detailed. And at the same time, I can see this running on a Switch 2 as well. So it's definitely going to be available for a wide variety of systems. So another cool thing as well, I mean, differing itself from other games, I wouldn't even say this is a genre because there's not that many games, but as the Minotaur, right, and if you're watching the gameplay, you can actually jump in and fight and do some damage that way, which I think is also really nice. And this is a roguelike as well. So you are going to die, you are going to fail, and then the next run, you know, things are going to be better. You're going to retain some upgrades, like, yes, my spike trap now does an extra 5% damage, or blah, 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 is now cheaper, right? Again, very cool. So each run, you know, you're going to get new enemies, new traps, changing layouts. No two nights are ever the same, and this is what I hope happens, because I find like even the incremental roguelike games where it's like, yes, let's make this trap stronger, let's make this thing cheaper. I mean, it's cool, there is a difference, but it's not like, I feel like how Supergiant has done with Hades 2 or even Hades 1, where each night offers something like, maybe not mechanically drastically different, but maybe story-wise, maybe additional, you know, tidbits that say, okay, this is the decision I'm going to make on this run in the game. And I think that is a good way to do a roguelike game. The very first a space game that I played, Everspace 1, wonderful concept, you know, as a spaceship, go out, shoot stuff, and you get that incremental damage. And it was cool, but eventually it gets a little bit boring. Not like Everspace 2, where they did like a bigger emphasis on, I wouldn't say bigger emphasis on story, but sort of wrapping the roguelike with story, expanding the mechanics of the game so that each run does feel particularly different. So that's what they're doing with Minos, which I think is really, really cool. And what Adam just said, thesis is, it appears, and as the Minotaur, you get to make decisions about the fate of him and also the other heroes who appear in the game. So, looking really cool. I'm interested in this a lot. I hope this comes out at a time where I have a slot in my game schedule and I can actually play this. But I would say this is probably not coming out. I'm saying 100% this is not coming out this year. I think we're probably looking at like a summer next year release if things work out. Looking at what the gameplay and some other videos online, it looks like it's pretty much finished. Like, I mean, I said alpha before. I think this is probably more like a beta or like a version 0.5, something along that line. There's definitely lots of things to sort of, refine and sort of make it so that it is a very seamless experience, because roguelikes, I think, are sort of heading towards the similar to the Fortnite genre of battle royale games, whereas like everything is a roguelike these days. Everything has roguelike elements. Fine, cool, if you're gonna do it, but make sure it's slightly different, or it has that very tight experience like a Hades game does offer. Or you go the extreme side, like a Hollow Knight Silksong, where it's crazy difficult, and those people who like that sort of game does it. But Minos, check out the demo if you're interested in demos. Check out the gameplay online, and let me know what you think down in the comments.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trailer here, and I'm kind of curious. I'm like, so, I mean, it just says modify walls and lead enemy into the trap, and I'm like, okay, I see a trap, and it's right there. It doesn't seem like it's that difficult, but this person's taking a really long time. So I'm like, there must be something else that I'm not understanding here that you're trying to get the person to do. So it's kind of like a tower defense in a way?
Kind of like a tower defense. I would say more like a, tower defense with slight dungeon keeper elements, but definitely more focused on the mechanics and less on the strategy and resource management part of like that sort of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, because it's yeah, it seems like you're trying to get the pathing right, but then I'm looking at it, I'm like, there seems like the path went straight through the Minotaur and went straight through the trap, so I don't really understand what the person's trying to do here.
I mean, this is gameplay. It's I don't know where I got it from. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone is playing this. And I'm like, okay, cool. This looks interesting, rather than a trailer.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, I don't really understand.
Oh, I did have a side question. You're still playing Ghost of Yotei, right?
I haven't started yet. I'm still finishing Silent Hill F. I don't think I'm gonna do all 5 endings. I played it through the first time, and then and I enjoyed it. I really like it. It's a really great game. Personally, for me, it doesn't really feel like it's got elements of Silent Hill, but to me, it kind of feels like it was maybe originally supposed to be its own IP, and then later on they were like, oh well, if we make it a Silent Hill, it'll sell more. So let's tweak a few things to turn it into to make it a Silent Hill game, which is fine. I understand why you would entirely do that, because I don't know how well it was sold if it was its own IP. But I was talking to Noble Cooper the other day, and he was saying that it probably would have worked better as a secret Silent Hill game where it's its own thing, and then at the end you realize, oh wait, no, this ties into Silent Hill. This is actually a Silent Hill game. And I think narratively that would have worked better. But sales-wise, I think they made the right decision naming it Silent Hill. But yeah, anyway, I was really enjoying it. And then at the end of the game, there's just this gauntlet of enemies, and you just keep hitting these walls, and you have to defeat a certain enemy to break the wall. And these enemies are just damage sponges, and they throw like 3 enemies at you. And part of the combat, the idea is that Hinako is not fast, so she's kind of clunky, and so you kind of have to keep an eye on the enemy and exploit their openings and whatnot. But when you have 3 enemies, you know, when one enemy has an opening, another one's attacking, and then when that one has an opening, a third one's attacking. And I have actually gotten into a few situations where I'm at full life. One enemy will hit me, and then they'll go into this long damage animation, and then the second one will join in halfway through, and literally I can't even move. It's just that one hit just ends me because it just keeps going until my life's gone. So that last gauntlet was just like, oh my, I really want to play this again. So, but I did play a second time. I got the UFO ending, and now I'm going to play a third time. I don't know if I'm going to play it the fourth and fifth time to get all endings. I think I'm just going to watch all the endings on YouTube because, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm really curious in the lore. I really like the story. It's really, really good, but having to go through all that combat over and over and over again is like, and having to play through the entire game, for just a few little tidbits, it's kind of like, okay, you know, I've had my fun. I'm gonna just look it up.
I would have disabused you from multiple runs in a game, unless it's like your mainline franchise. But I guess not yet.
Yeah, no, I was still gonna get I'll still get at least 3 runs out of it. But yeah, each run is kind of like, my first time through I think was about 10 hours, 10 and a half. Which is actually amazing because usually when it says time to beat, I'm usually about like 50% higher. But this time it said time to beat 10 to 12 hours, and I was right on 10 and a half. So maybe it's just because it's a different style of game than an RPG. So there's like far less exploration, or the exploration is a little more guided. It's not so go off on your own in an open world game. But yeah, I'm gonna play that. I guess I'll finish the playthrough I'm on, and then look up the rest of the story, and then I'll get to Ghost 𝙎𝙬. So I should probably get to Ghost 𝙎𝙬. You're muted. I don't know what you're saying.
You'll probably get to Ghost 𝙎𝙬 before you leave.
I would assume so. I mean, like I said, I've already beaten it. It only took me about 10 hours, and then I did the UFO run, which was probably another 5 or so. It goes a lot faster on subsequent playthroughs, sure, for sure. It's way less than 10 hours for each playthrough, but yeah, it is kind of sometimes when you get to the combat and you're in those parts, it's kind of like, okay, I gotta do this again, all right, you know. And you can even see it on stream where, like, the first time I played through, I had the same problem in Dead Space, where when I first started with Dead Space, I was kind of like, oh, you know, this is spooky, this is scary. Oh my god, you know, that thing jumped out from around the corner. But then as I died over and over and over and over and over and over again, eventually things became less scary because it was like, okay, I'm just gonna run past this guy. I'm just gonna run past that guy. Because, you know, death became so normalized. And this one I don't die so often, but it's just kind of like the combat is so slow, and it's just kind of like, okay, you know, like I don't know, I start to take it a little less seriously. So yeah, but I do enjoy it. I do think it's a good game. I do think it's worth checking out. I'm just not sure it's worth 5 playthroughs. 3, sure, but 5, I don't know.
At our age, man, like, more than one playthrough is still a thing. With your extensive game catalog and my extensive game catalog, that's...
Well, here's the thing. I mean, like, okay, like, I spent 120 hours, I think, on Persona 5. I spent like over 100 something hours on Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Stellar Blade, I think I was at 90 hours, and I played it 3 times through. So I mean, playing Silent Hill 3 times in 25 hours is it's not that long. I mean, like, when I play Ghost of 𝙎𝙬, I guarantee you I'm gonna play one playthrough of Ghost of 𝙎𝙬 is gonna be longer than the 3 playthroughs I did of Silent Hill. So yeah,
I mean, why not just like play it once and then go straight to Ghost of 𝙎𝙬? What was it was just the pull of the additional story that kept you going?
So the way it works is you play through the story, and then there's a set ending. And then after you play through that, then you, in your second playthrough, you can find some more notes laying around. So it gives you kind of a better sense of what's happening. Also, some cutscenes are extended or slightly altered. So you can get some new perspectives on certain things. For example, they're usually fairly small. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger, but you know, like maybe a character will have an extra few lines or something like that to kind of flesh out their motivations, or maybe like the first time it you know, your character walks out of the room and it fades to black, but the second time your character walks out of the room and it kind of lingers on the person who's still standing in the room, and you can see their facial expressions, which kind of express what they're thinking. Or maybe like, oh, this person wasn't, you know, actually trustworthy, or maybe, oh, this person actually does seem concerned, or something like that. So you get a little more insight on the characters, and then of course you get the new endings, which add some context to what's going on. You know, so because Silent Hills are always kind of, they're psychological. They're about what's going on in your mind. It reflects your state of mind and whatnot. So in this case, you know, it kind of, if you go through and you fight, you know, get different bosses, you'll get, if you get different endings, you get different bosses at the end. These bosses represent different aspects of what the character's thinking, or how the character's thinking about certain things. So going through it multiple times reflects all that, and so you're getting a much more rounded view of the game. Yeah. So it's designed to be played multiple times. But unlike Nier Automata, where Nier Automata you play through multiple times, but one time you play as one character, the second time you play as a second character, and then you know, each time you go through, it's like a different game because you're playing from a different perspective. Here you're always playing from the same perspective. You're just getting a little more into her head. And so I think because of that, it's kind of like, okay, well, 90% of what I'm doing is the exact same thing I did the last two times. But I am getting a little bit more perspective. But I think that's why I'm like, okay, 3 is probably enough. 5, I'll probably just look up a you know, story breakdown, because otherwise I'm going to be doing, you know, otherwise, yeah, I'll do the same 90% of the game 5 times in a row. It's not, the gameplay's not changing. Really, only the ending is changing. Yeah. But to get to the ending is like 5-6 hours. So
I'm gonna revisit this next year, and hopefully by then you're just doing 2 runs of a game and not just 3
no. I'll
or
do
4.
3 runs of the game. Yeah, especially if I have time.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Tell us about Parasite Mutant, sir.
Because you said that like 2 years ago. You said like 3 years ago, you'll be like, oh, my prediction, I think it was, what was it? You're like, my prediction for 2023 is Adam's not going to be doing reruns of games anymore. I think you've said that a couple times. That's been your prediction.
I know. And I'm going to keep
true.
saying it until it's I psychologically.
It's never going to come true. If anything, it's reinforcing my idea that I should play games over and over and over again. I'm being a hipster about it. My brain is a hipster.
No, I get, you know,
sounds like
I mean, the difference between us is the story and stuff, so I get it. For me, it's just like, especially as I've gotten older, and I talked about this, it's like, I want to finish more games, which is why I would not play something more.
Well, that's the thing, is if you only play through one playthrough, you don't finish the game, because you don't have that extra context. So you don't really understand what's going on.
I mean, okay, yeah.
I guarantee you, if you play it through one time, you will not know. You'll know one aspect of what's going on, but you won't understand the other aspects. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway,
this topic could be for that series we talked about, where it's like Adam and Korean debates, Mortal Kombat edition, whatever you want to call it.
Mortal Kombat, yes.
Or verbal combat.
Verbal combat.
And we do like a going back to the OG days of when to start. I have a screenshot of episode 7.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, Parasite Mutant, behold, legally distinct Parasite Eve, except this time it's not Aya, it's Nova. So this is a spiritual successor of Parasite Eve. Basically, the people who made it were like, you know what, we love Parasite Eve. People have been asking for a Parasite Eve game for ever since Parasite, you know, ever since I think the second one. We did get the 3rd birthday, but that one was different. People enjoyed it, but I don't think it was quite what people were looking for. But anyway, this one is very, very much in the spirit of Parasite Eve. It's even called Parasite Mutant, so I mean, come on, the name even reflects back to it. This one is a little different aesthetically. The other one, I mean, it went for quote unquote realistic graphics, but that was realistic graphics for the time, which was the original PlayStation, if I remember correctly. But this one goes for more of an anime style. You know, and interestingly enough, it actually has a CRT filter that you can turn off and on. So if you want that original Parasite Eve kind of feel to it, you can turn that on, which is really interesting that they're going with that, but it's kind of fun. But anyway, this game is, you know, obviously the story is very similar. There are these creatures that are kind of popping up and mutating all over the place. You're out there trying to get through and uncover the secrets of what's going on and defeating these enemies. But actually, the gameplay is extremely similar to the original Parasite Eve as well. So the combat is, if you played Parasite Eve, you know what to expect. If you played Vagrant's story, you kind of know what to expect, because, you know, Square, I guess they were Squaresoft back then, used basically the same system for Vagrant Story as well. So what it is it's kind of a semi-turn-based system. So you have like some sort of energy bar, and when that's full, you can do an attack. So in that sense, it's also kind of similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake. The difference is that when your energy is full, then what you do is you click a button, and this kind of sphere grid shows up around, or this kind of dome shows up around the character, and it kind of goes into a VATS system where you can, you know, time pauses and you can select your target, and then it selects what attack you want to use on that target. She does the attack, and then you wait for your bar to fill, and then you can do the next attack. Now in this case, they're calling it the ATC. So if you're familiar with Final Fantasy games, it's ATB, Active Time Battle. This time they're calling it an ATC, which is an Active Time Chains. Because what it looks like you can do is you can chain up to 3 attacks together, and if you time them correctly, then you can get a little bit of bonus damage or something like that. So, you know, you could either attack 3 enemies, or you could attack an enemy maybe 3 times, or maybe you could, like, say, shoot an enemy with a gun to stun them, and then throw an incendiary grenade to light them on fire, and then hit them with some other weapon that does bonus damage when they're on fire, or something like that. So you know, you have these chains where if you use attacks and correctly, then you can get some bonus damage, which is kind of interesting. It's really interesting that they're doing that. You can also do a little bit of dodging in there. So outside of combat, there is some leveling. It seems like you're not leveling the character though. You're leveling the gear. So all your gear is modular, so you can change it up, switch it out. You know, if you want to add a grenade launcher to a gun or something, I don't know going to do, you know, maybe it's just like a flashlight, but who knows. It says the gear is going to be modular, and you're also going to get plus points, which you can use to level your gear, so you can make your stuff more powerful, or I don't know if it's just like a straight power up, or if there's like trees. Not really sure, but it does say that you can mod your weapons, or sorry, mod your gear, excuse me. You can mod your gear or level them up using these plus points. Now, one thing that they specifically mention is that the game does have New Game Plus, because it seems like a lot of games these days don't have New Game Plus, and then they add it in later. But they are saying, like, nope, from the beginning, we're going to have New Game Plus, and when you play New Game Plus, all of your progress is going to carry over. So you're going to, you know, have all your great gear, you're going to have all your plus points that you can use, and like Silent Hill F that we were just talking about, you're going to be able to unlock new areas. So if you play through the first time, you get the basic game, and then in the second time through, you're going to be able to access new areas, and you're going to be able to, you know, get a little bit more into the story and that sort of thing. So this looks like the kind of game I will play multiple times. So, and of course, because this being an anime game and us being in the era that we are, your character will be fully customizable, and at least in the sense that you can customize her hairstyle, her outfit, and the colors. So, of course, everybody knows that fashion is the true end game of any game. Any game that has your ability to change how your character looks, fashion is always the true end game, because it's one thing to beat the game, it's another thing to beat the game well, and it's something completely different to beat the game in style. So yeah, glad that they're adding that, because that's always fun. Now, there's no release date on this yet, but according to Steam, it does say coming soon, and from the information I can say, it does say 2026. So it looks like sometime next year, but we don't have an exact date yet. So check it out, Parasite Mutant, a spiritual successor to Parasite Eve.
Who is Parasite Eve?
Parasite Eve is not a who.
Oh, what?
So Parasite Eve is a book. It was I think it's a Japanese writer, but it's actually kind of an old, I guess it would be considered an older book by now. I don't know if it was written in the 80s or the 90s, but it might have even been before then. But anyway, they made a movie out of it. They made a game out of it. But the idea is that, as we know, we all have DNA that in our cells. But our cells also contain mitochondria, and mitochondria has its own DNA, right? So in the story, the mitochondrial DNA, there's something about it where it's like sentient, or there's something that's able to manipulate it, or it's something is added. Anyway, something is able to manipulate your mitochondria, and they're able to cause people to turn into monsters. So it's something to do with that. I'm not quite sure. It's been like a really long time since I played the game, and I've only seen bits of the movie, and I've never read the book. But yeah, so it has to do with your mitochondria. And so Parasite Eve is kind of I guess it's like a patient zero, or like, Adam and Eve. It's like the beginning of all this, because I think we get our mitochondrial DNA from your mother, right? So so it's an Eve, not an Adam. But yeah, so it's basically this thing comes through, and it's able to just flip a switch, and humans start turning into these monsters and stuff like that. And there is a woman who's kind of the center of it all, and she's the one that can kind of manipulate them and whatnot, at least in the movie. But in the game, you're playing as a special like a special forces kind of police officer kind of thing, who's at the right place at the wrong time, has to deal with this threat. So any one of us could change at any time.
Cool. I think I've seen something about this, like possibly like a trailer for the movie or something on YouTube, or even probably Netflix, maybe. Probably Netflix, actually.
The movie's pretty old. It is really old. It's I used a clip from it in one of my videos. I'm trying to remember which video. There's a video where I mentioned I don't have a micro pipette, and I took a scene from Parasite Eve. You would never know unless you're familiar with Parasite Eve. But go back. I don't remember which one. What was I talking about? It was the 𝙂𝙢𝙢𝙧 video, and I mentioned how I'm splicing together us three hosts to create this character, and I mentioned I don't have a micro pipette, and just a clip from Parasite Eve. But I mean, I knew about it before it. That's why I just wanted to throw a little fun Easter egg in there. But yeah.
I love the combat of this, like looking at the trailer, like looking at the turn-based stuff. I'm like, okay, this looks really cool. And then I'm like, yeah, no, I probably need to wait for some gameplay so I can see how big of a horror element there is. And if it's not too much, yeah, I'll give it a go.
I mean, it's got that anime aesthetic, so it's not gonna be as intense as something like, say, it'd be like the difference between like a Bloodborne and Code Vein.
Okay,
for this versus like this, where Bloodborne would be like Dead Space, and this would be more like Code Vein. It's a little more cartoony, mature themes and whatnot. But if you're okay with watching Berserk or some more violent anime, Blood, I think, is the vampire one. Yeah, it should be fine.
Cool. I will keep that in mind. And my final story for today, the one that I did not expect to choose because I woke up today, I'm like, nope, I cannot talk about Suda51 and his game. No offense intended. I was like, yes, this is a story and it's interesting and I like the game, because my original story was going to be, just for you guys watching the live stream, Romeo as a Deadman. Looked cool, like cool. Like I like the mechanics and the combat, fine, but just that scene, the scene in the trailer, like really just kept playing in my head over and over. I'm like, oh god, I don't think I want to talk about this. And then I'm like, nope, change your mind. So today we're talking about The Dispatch, which is a game I've been following for a while on Steam. And even on YouTube, because I follow Alana Pierce, the lady who used to work for Sony and did a bunch of games journalism. I think she's like Australian and lives in the States. So what happens when a superhero stops being the hero and starts being the desk clerk? In Dispatch, your greatest power might be knowing who to send and when. So you play as Robert Robertson, Mecha Man. So think of him as kind of like an Iron Man, where Iron Man loses the ability to be Iron Man, like without the suit, without the armor, that sort of stuff. And so when his mech suit is destroyed, he's demoted from a frontline hero to dispatcher, overseeing missions rather than executing. And this is very much an adult game. Like there's a lot of like language and adult themes in some of the videos that you watch. And there's a bunch of stuff going around on like Instagram and TikTok. So, but it's cool. Like I like the idea. I like this blend of, it's not pure story. This is not like a telltale game with some parts of like quick time, that sort of stuff. There is like it's a very much a mismatch of different genres, of some strategy, some story, and some other stuff that I haven't quite figured out, that I haven't seen yet from the game. So, as I said, it's not pure action. There's satire, there's banter, there's relationships. There's the idea of you once being this amazing Tony Stark-like character, and now just being someone who looks like he's working in a 911 call center, right? Almost, if you watch the trailer of the game. So it's very different in that sense. There are dialogue choices, relationships, backroom conflicts matter. I mean, who do you trust? Who do you talk to? And I think one of the coolest aspects of this game is you understanding the heroes, right? And again, think back to DC, think back to Marvel Comics, think back to whatever universe you like, right? It's like all these heroes work well together with different kinds of people. Not everyone works well together in a team, but maybe in a really apocalyptic situation, everyone works well together, right? But it's like, who am I thinking of? Like Thor and the Hulk, right? When Marvel, again, very famous in a lot of different things. So you have to choose who to send out in these missions. And again, you want to choose people who gel well together, because if people don't gel well together, the mission might actually fail, and that affects your game. And again, you're a dispatcher, so you receive calls across the city, and you need to figure out, okay, for this situation, which hero do I send to deal with this, right? What traits, what abilities do they have? And if this person uses this ability, right? Think of like Superman. Superman gets his energy from the sun, and Superman, in depend on the variation of the Superman you're talking about on the world and that sort of stuff, but like he can have his like solar energy drained where he needs to fly up into space and recharge, that sort of stuff. So in this game, they have superheroes who do have like energy cooldowns and ability cooldowns. So if you use this superhero now for this battle, next call, like this guy's out, he can't use this particular ability again until his physical energy or mental energy or psychic energy, whatever you want to call it, like recharges in that sort of situation, right? So your heroes as well, again, talking about them, they all have their quirks, their history, their conflicts, and something you read about this hero at the beginning of the game is something that, like, yes, I should remember that, because on this mission, this history is going to impact what he's going to do on the mission. So there's a lot of famous people, as I said, in this game. The guy from Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul, Laura Bailey, of course, Alana Pierce. There is the people that Adam always talks about, Ben Starr. Not that you always talk about Ben Starr, but like he's like
the Pedro Pascal of games these days. You know, just in everything.
Yes. I mean, there's a Kickstarter game that I considered kickstarting that he was in as well. He's one of the voice actors. So the demo's out on Steam. I've been following this game since last year. It will be released, confirmed release date. They just did a release date trailer 3 days ago. And it's coming out on October 22nd. Unfortunately, impossible for me to play. I mean, maybe like starting in November when I can get to game finally for like 5-6 hours a day for like a month, which is gonna be awesome. So maybe then I'll have time for it. We'll see. But so far, right, again, there's a bunch of early impressions. There's stuff that's been, I wouldn't say leaked, but just sort of like given to certain people. Go check those videos out. It's pretty good. People have liked it. I haven't seen any negative feedback yet, but then again, like studios often choose selected people because they know, like, yes, Adam loves Final Fantasy games. He'll literally never say a bad thing about them. I mean, in theory, right? Um, I mean, and this is what they've done with the dispatch. So let me know what you think. Is this something for you? I'd still love to play it, and maybe I will get it. I don't know if I'll actually cover this as well, even if I do get a chance, just because there's other stuff to cover that just is going to come up when I finish a particular game. So we'll see. But that's it. And yeah, Adam, I was going to ask you, why aren't you playing Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles? Ivalice.
Ivalice.
Yeah.
I have played that game so many times.
Oh yes. You talked about this.
Yeah, so
last week or 2 weeks ago.
I'd
Yes.
like to play it, but it's not a high priority because I mean I've played it so many times. So it's one of those things that like and that's a game that I constantly come back to. You know, like every few years I'll come back and I'll play it again. In fact, I have a sheet of paper in the living room sitting on the bookshelf that is a map of all the deep dungeons. And I've had that on that shelf for like, I don't even know, 10 years at this point. I printed it off once and it gets referenced from time to time. So I just left it there. I didn't throw it out. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, they're not really changing too much. I mean, they did say that they're changing a few things, but I think it's just kind of scrubbing the script a little bit and maybe making it a little more, because sometimes something reads really well but doesn't sound as good when somebody says it out loud. So I think they were maybe tweaking it for the flow a little bit, but I think it's mostly the same thing. Really all that different from the game. And also, I'm kind of holding out hope that, because I was watching the trailers and they have the voices, and I don't know, I've played the game so many times without the voices that I'm so used to like the little like when they're talking, that the voices kind of weird me out. So I was like, you can turn down the voices in the game, but then when you do that, it's just dead silence. When they're talking, there's no little like indication of them talking. And apparently too, it also gets rid of the death screams. So if something dies, they don't do the, you know, it's just kind of like, so I'm hoping that they maybe patch in a toggle to add in the old sound effects for that, but I don't think they will. But yeah, I'm just kind of holding off on it. So I've got bigger fish to fry for now, or I have bigger priorities on games right now. Because yeah, otherwise I'm playing a game I've already played, and there are other games I want to play that I haven't played. So I'm gonna
Yes, and
prioritize
I
those.
mean, I did talk about this before about replaying games.
I'll get to it. It's just a matter of when, you know. It's but yeah, because right now I got I'm finishing up Silent Hill, and then I've got Ghost of 𝙬𝙬, and then Katamari, and I feel like there was something else, but
I think that will take you throughout the end of the year, because you'll be Ghost of 𝙬𝙬 starts, then you head to the States and you can play.
yeah,
You come back and you're gonna be playing Ghost of 𝙬𝙬. And
yeah,
then this
so-
Katamari will be out like beginning of December.
yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure. It might take me, yeah, it might take me out through the rest of the year or close to it. But yeah, and then we'll see where we go after that. Something from the backlog. This is basically a kind of in the same vein as a backlog game, where I'm kind of like, okay, you know, I'll get to it eventually, but I have other games I want to play first. So,
Oh no, of course that
yeah.
makes sense.
I mean, I already know what's gonna happen. I already know the story.
I mean, the reason I asked is because like when I was thinking like, okay, I need to change today's game, and I checked the usual sources, which was like, okay, let's check SteamDB, what's trending on Steam, and if everyone would ever seen like the Digimon game is like crazy popular at the
Oh.
moment. Yeah, I was like, okay, maybe I talk about that, but it's already out, and I don't have anything to add, especially because my brother watched Pokemon and Digimon, and it's because, and I've talked about this on the show, that like one brother did one thing in my house, the other brothers did not touch it, so I never watched any Pokemon or Digimon because my younger brother did that. And then I was like, number 2 on Steam as of a few hours ago is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. I was like, oh wow, cool.
Yeah, because I mean, the older versions are, you had the original, obviously on the PlayStation, and then you had this PlayStation Classic version, which was on PSP and PS3, and then you had War of the Lions, which was also on PS3, PSP, and I think War of the Lions was also on. I mean, you could put it on Vita, and I don't think that there was a version of Final Fantasy Tactics on PS4. So this is the first time in a long time that Final Fantasy Tactics has been available on modern console. So I think for a lot of people, they had heard about Tactics and they had never played. Older people, I'm sure most of us have probably played, but I think there are a lot of younger Final Fantasy fans who have heard a lot about it and have never gotten a chance to play it, just because it's a little bit harder to get a hold of. That might be on Steam. I don't know. I think War of the Lions might be on Steam, but yeah, I think this is, and actually there is, I think, an iPad version. I think War of the Lions there's a mobile version. But this is the first like major release of Final Fantasy Tactics in a while. So I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, you know, I've heard so much about it. And now it has voice acting. I know a lot of younger people. I've seen people commenting. It's actually something I've seen a few comments on. Not all the a lot of younger people do not like playing games without voice acting, it seems. Older people seem to be a little bit more tolerant of it. But I've seen like a lot of young people, and there were a lot of younger people commenting about, oh my God, you know, this game is with the voice acting, it's so good. You know, how could you guys play this without the voice acting? But I don't know. I'm so used to it without it that it's just kind of like an uncanny valley thing. I hear voices and it's like, oh, that's not how I imagine Ramzan. It creeps me out. Which is funny. That's a weird thing with me. Actually, it was really funny because I played Clair Obscur twice, and I played it in French both times. And then the other day I was watching a video clip, and they were it was in English. And I was like, that's not what they sound like. It creeped me out. I don't know. It's weird because I'm so used to hearing the French voices, that hearing the English voices, not the English, but just the voices being slightly different was like, oh, it was jarring. I don't know. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I saw it. I'm like, I remember I bought Tactics Ogre because you had talked about it so often on the Switch, and I tried that, and I had a similar feeling to Katamari, where I'm like, I'm not sure. Yeah. So I'm like, you also talked about Final Fantasy Tactics for as long as we started talking about games more often together. So I'm like, oh, should this go on my wish list? Shouldn't it? So I think it's probably gonna go there. It'll probably go on my wish list, and I'll wait for the Steam's. Oh God, the Steam sale just ended yesterday, so it'll probably be for like a winter sale or something like that, and pick it up because it's not even that expensive on Steam. I think it's like $20 if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, let us motor on. All right, today's questions, audience. If you are here with us, make sure you comment down your answers so we can have a look at them later, or even look at them right now. Adam, what are the coolest, most stylish games ever made?
So in terms of style, I would have to say probably the most stylish, or one of the most stylish games that I absolutely love. So it's not style or substance, it's both, is Okami. Okami is a fantastic looking game. I'm sure there's somebody who's mimicked it, but I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. It's got this cool watercolor aesthetic. It looks kind of like a painting that's moving. And not only that, like it looks like traditional Japanese art, which obviously has its own style to it. So Okami is just, it's great. I mean, and the game itself is really great. If you're looking for a game that seems to be more style over substance, where you're like, okay, it's kind of fun to look at, but you know, gameplay was okay. I might have to go with Haven. I enjoyed Haven. I had fun with it. I streamed it a while ago, but yeah, the gameplay was kind of basic. You know, you just kind of run around in the map, you find an enemy, you defeat them, and then cleanse an area. It was more about the story, but it looked really nice. It was really pretty to look at. So.
Perfect. And final question for today. What's a game you didn't expect to love but ended up completely obsessed with?
That's actually pretty easy. So when I first tried Other Side, it was because I knew I liked tactical games, you know, so I was like, okay, I like this style of game. But it was just black and white and red. And I was like, I don't know. you know, and then I saw somebody recommending it online, and I was like, okay. And then it went on sale, and I was like, okay, I'll try this out. And I was like, I think I played it for Halloween, and I was like, yeah, this seems like it'll be an okay game for Halloween. So I wasn't that into it. To me, it kind of looked a little basic because of the color palette. Actually, the color palette serves it really, really well. But anyway, I started playing it, and I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. But then once I started to realize that it's not your traditional tactics game, because in your traditional tactics game, you know, you'll have a percent to hit, you'll have, you know, you can kind of guess what an enemy might do, but there's no guarantee that an enemy will do that because it is somewhat randomized. In other side, it's less a tactical game and more a puzzle game, or at least that's the way it felt to me, because you're basically guaranteed that your attacks are going to land. And it's all about, and it'll specifically tell you the enemy will do this in this situation. So it's very much about knowing how the enemies work and manipulating their AI or manipulating their algorithms to try to get through combat as efficiently as possible. And once I realized that it was less about giving myself an advantage, you know, in terms of like, okay, better chance to hit or better positioning, and it was more about manipulating the battlefield and the enemies, like you would in a puzzle, then it just clicked with me. And I was like, okay, this does not play like any tactical game I've ever played before, but this is so much fun, and absolutely loved that game. And then the lore in it is just great. It's just fantastic. So absolutely, you know, didn't give, you know, kind of glanced at the other side. Okay, whatever, you know, but on a second look, it was like, oh my, this is a game for me.
Maybe a lore video for Other Side 2 coming out next year?
There is not currently a Other Side 2 in development.
Oh, the what is the name of that game? Yes,
which is not it's like a spiritual successor. It might be in the same world. I don't know, but yeah, it's because it might be set in the same world. I don't know if it is. I'm assuming not, but it's a spiritual successor because the gameplay is very similar. It's got the timeline. But yeah.
Okay. And with that final question, thank you everyone as always for tuning in. We have Adam for another 2 weeks. Oh no, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, because you're leaving on the 29th, right? So 3 more shows. And then yeah, then are you still gonna be here on a Tuesday the 28th? Okay, then we don't need extra videos because you'll be back. Yeah, what am I thinking? Oh, cool. All right, then that is it. Then we will, you guys will literally never know Adam was gone because he'll be flying all the way to the other side of the world and coming back also very quickly.
Like a week and a half.
Yeah.
I leave on a Wednesday and come back on a Sunday. I think it's Sunday.
Great. So you're going for 10 days. Oh no, so we will lose you for a week. So we do need that extra week.
Just 1 week.
Yeah. So you, okay. Yeah, you leave on the 29th and you come back on the 8th or 9th of November.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we do need the extra videos, but we're recording that on the 29th or 28th. Got it. Cool. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in as always, and we will see you next time.